Hello there, I'm Sian Hill. I'm a therapeutic coach, an educator and a relational and developmental trauma specialist, and I teach parents how to understand and tune into their nervous system so they can support, nurture and heal themselves and their children and break generational cycles of trauma. Whether you're new to me or whether you've followed me for a long time, thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate you. And if you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button so you get notified of new videos whenever they come out and you don't miss anything. Your nervous system drives everything. How you feel safe, how you connect, how you engage with others and the world around you. How you respond to and regulate stress, emotions and behaviour. And your autonomic nervous system is driving all of the problems and challenges and symptoms we're desperately trying to fix, often without us realising. The problem is that most people are trying to fix these problems and challenges without getting to the root cause of them and what's driving them first. The autonomic nervous system, which is why nothing we do works, doesn't stick, or doesn't create lasting change, despite us working really hard and having the best of intentions and doing everything that we're being taught to do. So that's what this video is all about. Your autonomic nervous system and what's really going on below the surface. We're going to be walking through what the autonomic nervous system is. We're going to be talking about polyvagal theory. We're going to be talking about what regulation really is, and also the most important skill for everybody, especially parents, to have. So our autonomic nervous system drives everything that we think, feel and do, and everything that happens within our bodies without us having to consciously think about it. All human beings, as with all mammals, are wired for safety and for connection. And it's our autonomic nervous system that drives all of this. So there are essentially two parts to your autonomic nervous system. Your sympathetic nervous system, which is what gets everything going, gets everything moving. And then you've got the parasympathetic part of your nervous system, which slows everything back down again. So the two parts of your nervous system work together, just like an accelerator or a gas pedal if you're over the pond, and the brake on your car. And they work together in harmony to create balance within your body and in your life. Now, the sympathetic nervous system is what most of us will know of as fight-flight. It's activated when we don't feel safe, when we're in danger, but also when we need to get moving. So when we're exercising, it's involved in play, anything that increases our heart rate, quickens our breathing and gets more blood flowing around our body. And then the parasympathetic nervous system is how things come back down to balance. And when these two are working together in harmony, in balance, then we have what we call regulation within our nervous systems. Now, the sympathetic part of our system is pretty simple, but the parasympathetic part of our nervous system, the slowing down part, that's a little bit more complex. And we now understand so much more about how our autonomic nervous system works, and in particular our parasympathetic nervous system, because of the incredible, amazing work of Dr. Stephen Porges and his polyvagal theory. So poly means many and vagal means vagus, as in the vagus nerve. And Dr. Porges' work has absolutely revolutionised the way we understand human beings, how we connect, relationships, attachments, and how we understand and heal trauma. So what polyvagal theory helped us to understand is that there isn't just two parts to our nervous system, which was what was thought for years, that there are three separate and very distinctive parts to our nervous system. So the first part of our nervous system is the safe and social arm of our nervous system. It's how we connect with others and it's how we feel safe through connection as well. It's how we engage with the world and the people and the environment around us. Now, this is the ventral vagal part of our nervous system. It's the most evolved and it's the newest part of our nervous system. It's unique to mammals. Now, this isn't only the place where we ideally want to spend most of our time, but this part of our nervous system is also essential for how we move through and come back down and out of our stress and survival physiology. Now, the second part of our nervous system is our sympathetic nervous system. This is, again, like I said, fight, flight, mobilization, where everything gets moving. Now, when our sympathetic nervous system is activated, when we don't feel safe, or when we believe or perceive that we are in danger, it gets everything moving so we can either flee and get away from something dangerous, get to safety, or so that we can fight and defend ourselves from an attack. Now, the third part of your nervous system, which is the second kind of part and arm of your vagus nerve and your parasympathetic nervous system, is the shutdown part of your nervous system. Now, this is where freeze lives. It's the dorsal vagal part of your nervous system. And here, everything is about restoration, conservation, and preservation. So at one end of the spectrum, you've got the freeze response, which is all about being very small and quiet. It's also the part of the nervous system that we need when we're sleeping, and is an important part of our digestive process. Now, we need all three parts of our nervous system, and we need them working together. And when they're working together and we're able to move easily between each of the different parts of our nervous system, we have what's called a regulated nervous system. Now, we move through these three different parts of our nervous system all of the time, often without us realizing. We often think that fight, flight, and freeze, for example, are really obvious and big stuff. So, like when we're running away, or when we're physically fighting something, or we have big fight energy, or whether we're frozen to the spot and we can't move in a freeze response. But while our stress responses, our survival responses can look like that, they don't necessarily have to. Because these stress responses get activated all of the time whenever we don't feel safe, whenever we feel unsafe, or whenever a need isn't being met. And our survival states, our body's defensive states, in other words, sympathetic and shut down, are underneath and are driving all of the challenges, the symptoms, and the difficult behaviours that we face. So whenever we don't feel safe, or when we feel like there's a danger, or we're in danger, or we're under threat, or a belief or our identity or anything else that's important to us is under threat or in danger, then a stress response is activated in our body. And when that danger or threat has passed, or when that need has been met, or when the danger has moved away and we've restored, then we come back down and out of those stress responses. We move back through our survival and stress physiology so that we can come down and out of it and come back to our safe and social part of our nervous system. Now, what happens for us so often as human beings is that we don't come down and out of these stress responses. We're not able to express and move through our survival and stress physiology. And when that happens, we get stuck in survival mode. We get stuck in our survival and defensive states, in shutdown or in sympathetic. Now, we need our stress responses, our survival responses, to be able to survive. We can't do anything or even exist without them. But they're meant to be time limited. We're not meant to get stuck in them. And when we do, it causes us lots and lots of problems in our bodies, in our relationships, in our lives, and with our health. Now, this is essentially what trauma is. It's where we get stuck stuck in stress responses, we get stuck in survival states, and that causes dysregulation within our nervous systems. Trauma is essentially something that happened too much, too soon, or too fast for our nervous system to handle. And it's where we get stuck in these responses, and those responses get trapped within our nervous systems, together with the sensory experiences and the emotions and feelings that we were experiencing at the time. And they'll live there in our bodies and in our nervous systems for a lifetime unless we learn how to work with them in the right way. In other words, until we learn how to work with the body and the nervous system. Now, while this can be really useful for us in the short term, and it helps us survive frightening, overwhelming and terrifying experiences, in the longer term, it causes us lots of problems. And it drives many adaptive and maladaptive behaviours that cause us so much pain and suffering in our lives. So what happens is that we end up living most of our lives in our survival states, which not only makes life harder and more stressful, it takes a huge toll on our body too, because our autonomic nervous system is also responsible for our biological functioning. So if we're spending a lot of time in our survival states, if we're not able to move through our survival and stress physiology, or if we're stuck in there constantly, then it means that our biological systems aren't able to work and function as optimally either. And this is why when we have unresolved trauma, it can cause so many mental, emotional and physical health problems. And to heal trauma, what we need to do is understand and learn how to tune into and befriend our unique nervous systems and our survival physiology, and be with that and build our capacity to be with that, so that we can restore regulation into our nervous systems, so that then we have a bigger capacity to regulate stress, emotions and behaviour, so that we don't live most of our lives in these survival states, which causes us lots of problems. And the key with regulating our nervous systems, with having a regulated nervous system, is all about being able to attune to our own unique survival physiology, to be able to attune to our own unique nervous system, our needs and experiences, so that we can hold space for and move through those little by little. And while this is the most important skill we can all have, learning how to master and attune to our own survival physiology, it is the most essential skill that any parent can have. Because to be able to truly attune to our children, to attune to their needs and their feelings and their experiences, we need to be able to attune to our own. Because number one, we can't give our children what we don't yet have ourselves. We need to be able to model everything to our children. Everything that they learn through interactions with us and our relationship with them. But also because we can't offer regulation to them, in other words, co-regulation, so that they feel safer and can move through their survival physiology and come back to a sense of safety without us, without that regulation within our nervous systems. Now, yes, we can learn tools and resources to be able to self-regulate in the moment, which are helpful and useful, especially in the shorter term. But in the longer term, it causes us lots of problems for ourselves and our children if we don't have that underlying regulation. But for now, I just want to come back to regulation and attunement and why this is so important for us to understand, especially as parents. Now, like I said, we've got these three separate distinctive parts of our nervous system. Safe and social, which is the ventral vagal arm, our sympathetic nervous system, which is fight, flight, and gets everything moving, and our shutdown part of our nervous system, which is our dorsal vagal part, which is all about immobilization, and it's about conservation, preservation. Now, the ventral vagal part of our nervous system, the safe and social part, isn't online when little ones are born. Human babies are essentially born too early, because if we were born when we were fully developed, we would be too big to be born. So when we're born, we can't talk, we can't walk, we can't even hold our heads up. And that's because we're born without a fully developed nervous system. Now, this is why the first 3 years of a child's life are so important. It's through the interactions with our parents and caregivers that we build capacity to be in our ventral vagal part of our nervous system, this safe and social part. So little ones have no ability to self-soothe. They have no ability to calm and come down and out of their own survival physiology. They need us to help them do that. And essentially what they're doing is they're borrowing capacity from our nervous systems in order for them to do that. So if we don't have regulation within our own nervous systems, this can be really hard and sometimes impossible for us to do. Now, if we didn't get that safe and secure nurturing foundation in the first 3 years of our lives, and our nervous systems weren't able to develop in the most useful and helpful way, then what happens is we have a limited ability to be in our safe and social part of our nervous system. We find it more difficult to stay there, and we also find it harder to move through and out of our stress and survival physiology. Now, if we haven't had that early foundation, either because our parents themselves hadn't learned how to do this from their parents and caregivers, which is essentially the legacy of generational trauma and the old ways of parenting and the way we now live our lives as human beings in a modern world, or because our parents were emotionally unavailable or abusive, or maybe they were busy dealing with health problems and surgeries, or maybe we as little ones had surgeries ourselves, then we don't build the foundations for being able to regulate our nervous systems. And we don't have the foundation created for self-regulation either. So what happens is we go through our lives trying to learn all these tools and resources to, number one, support ourselves, but number two, to support our children, when we didn't have that foundation in the first place. And it's exactly like the foundations of a house. Now, what we often do and what we're often taught to do is to redecorate the walls and paper over the cracks and buy lots of soft furnishing so it looks nice and detracts and distracts us away from those cracks and from the instability in our houses. Maybe we don't even notice because we've been papering over those cracks for so long. And then what happens is that one day something happens that blows our house down, where those foundations give way and everything collapses, and it causes pain and heartache and suffering in our lives. Now, just like with a house, if you repair and rebuild those foundations, then everything else on top of it is even more beautiful, even more comfortable, even more soothing. And our bodies and our nervous systems and our lives are no different. So the reason most of us are stuck and struggling so much is because we've never been taught. It's that early nervous system foundation which creates the foundation for us to be able to self-regulate, and also determines how we respond to stress and emotions in the first place, is the most important thing to understand, to tune into and to work with, because that's when everything else changes. And if we're parents, this is even more important to understand, because number one, we want to understand what's going on and learn how to attune to our physiology and to our children's and to their needs and experiences so they can move through them and we can support and nurture them. But in order to be able to heal our children, number one, we need to be building regulation within our own nervous systems ourselves. But number two, we need to help them repair and rebuild their foundations too. Otherwise, they will spend the rest of their lives dealing with the impact of that in their lives and in their relationships and in their health until we do. So regulation within our nervous systems and understanding our unique nervous systems really is the key to things changing for us and for our children. And this is what the new generation of parenting and healing trauma is all about. We can either say stuck and struggling, stuck in survival and defensive states, or we can build more regulation within our nervous systems. We can build our capacity to be with ourselves and our children in our survival states. And we need both of those in order to be able to support, nurture and heal our children, to build our capacity to be in ventrovagal, but also to build our capacity to be in our survival states as well, so that we can safely express and move through our physiology, our stress and survival physiology, and make sense of ourselves and the world around us. So if you're ready to start building more regulation within your nervous system, you're ready to start attuning to your stress and survival physiology, and you're ready to become a new generation parent, I've got a resource for you that will help you start doing all of this today. And the link for it is in the details below. So I hope this video was really helpful and helped you understand a little bit more about what your nervous system is and what's going on below the surface, and why regulation and attuning to our stress and survival physiology is so important, especially as parents. And thank you again for being here. If you found this video useful and you haven't yet subscribed to this channel, please do so. And I will see you back here next time. And until then, take good care.